I was standing outside a Walmart in Amarillo, Texas, holding a half-eaten banana and a receipt for shampoo I didn't even need. The sun was beating down hard on the blacktop, and I could smell the hot rubber of shopping cart wheels and motor oil. My knees were aching and my left slipper was flapping slightly where the sole had peeled off. And that's when I saw it. Our RV. Our home for the past 9 years. Pulling out of the parking lot. Without me in it. I didn't panic at first. I thought maybe Chuck was looping around to get closer to the entrance. Or maybe he was just repositioning. He'd always been fussy about parking straight. But then I saw the taillights flicker and the rig merge into traffic like it had somewhere to be. Like I didn't exist. I stood there for a full minute, still gripping that banana like it was some sort of lifeline. The receipt fluttered in the breeze, but I didn't feel it. My heart had dropped clean out of my chest. He left me. He actually left me. Before I get too deep into this mess, let me tell you something real quick. I'm not the type of woman who plays victim. I raised 3 kids, buried a daughter, taught Sunday school for 30 years, and managed to survive 2 gallbladder surgeries and a tax audit. But there's something different about being left, abandoned, by the person who swore they'd love you until death. Especially when that person's been the only constant in your life since Nixon was in office. It hits different when you're 73. Chuck and I had been doing the full-time RV thing since 2016, ever since we sold the house in Tennessee and decided we'd see the world while we still had knees. That was his line. We'd crisscrossed the country from the Grand Canyon to the Jersey Shore. And don't get me wrong, it was beautiful sometimes. But that day, that Walmart parking lot in Amarillo, it wasn't beautiful. It was the most humiliating moment of my entire life. I tried calling him. No answer. I called again. And again. Straight to voicemail. Chuck, it's me. You forgot me. I'm at the entrance where you dropped me off. Come back. That's what I said the first time. By the third call my voice was shaking. Not because I was scared, but because I couldn't believe this was happening. He forgot me. Who forgets their wife of 51 years? Unless it wasn't an accident. After 20 minutes and no return, a young employee pushing carts asked if I needed help. I said no, of course. My pride still worked even if my knees didn't. But then I sat down on a bench outside the pharmacy. The heat was starting to get to me and I was suddenly aware of just how exposed I was. No purse, no water, no sun hat. Just a busted slipper, a dead cell phone, yep, it died right there on me. And a banana I couldn't finish because my dentures were rubbing wrong. That's when it hit me, this wasn't a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. Chuck and I had been arguing more lately. Not yelling, but those cold silences that last days. He hated how I corrected him in public. I hated how he pretended I didn't exist once other people were around. He'd roll his eyes when I told stories, interrupt me when I forgot names. And every time I asked if something was wrong he'd say, "You just don't let things go, Helen. No, Chuck. You're the one who couldn't let go of your need to control everything. Including me." I decided to walk. Now that may not sound like much. But at 73, walking a mile in the Texas heat wearing mismatched slippers and no water is something close to a spiritual test. I made it as far as the loading dock behind the building before I had to sit down again. A young man in a red vest came outside for a smoke break. His name tag said, Deshaun. He offered me his water bottle and I nearly cried. "You good, ma'am?" "No," I said plain and clear. "My husband left me. In an RV. Without a word." He blinked. Like, for real. For real. If you've ever felt abandoned or underestimated, especially by someone who claimed to love you, hit that subscribe button now. We've got more powerful true stories coming that you don't want to miss. Eventually, a kind woman named Maria at the customer service counter let me charge my phone behind her register. It powered on long enough for me to see a text from Chuck. "Don't make this dramatic. You'll be fine. You always land on your feet." I stared at it for a full minute. He wasn't coming back. No apology. No location. Just a text like he'd left me at the grocery store with the wrong list. Not in the middle of Texas with nothing but a banana and a dead phone. That night, I slept in a booth at a 24-hour diner across the parking lot. A waitress named Penny gave me a free bowl of chili and let me use their staff bathroom. I kept my arms folded over my chest the whole night, half from the cold, half from the feeling that something inside me had finally snapped in two. It wasn't just that he left. It was that he didn't look back. He didn't care if I had water, if I had a way home, if I was okay. After all the meals I made, the bills I paid, the nights I stayed up with his mother while she was dying, I meant nothing to him. I woke up to the sound of the jukebox playing Blue Bayou, and the sight of a woman across from me sipping coffee with tired eyes. She gave me a little nod like she could see the whole story on my face. And just like that, I knew something had to change. Chuck might have driven away like I was no one, but maybe, just maybe, that was my chance to figure out who I actually was without him. But I wasn't prepared for what would happen next. Because 3 days later, someone knocked on the door of that same diner. And the man who walked in, he had my wallet in his hand, and a secret about Chuck that would turn everything upside down. Don't go anywhere. This story's just getting started. Subscribe and stay tuned, where Helen takes control of her life and uncovers something that will shock her to her core. The man holding my wallet looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was buttoned wrong, his hair was all over the place, and he had the kind of eyes that had seen too much. He stepped inside the diner and glanced around like he wasn't sure what century he was in. Then his eyes landed on me. He walked over and said, "Are you Helen Jennings?" I blinked. "Yes. That's me." He held out my wallet like it was a live grenade. "I found this in a rest stop bathroom off I-40. I saw your driver's license. I figured someone might be missing it." I took it from him slowly, unsure if I should say thank you or run screaming. But before I could ask anything, he dropped into the booth across from me like he was too tired to stand a second longer. "My name's Kyle," he said. "And I think we need to talk about Chuck. Now let me make one thing clear. I don't usually sit down with strange men at 6 a.m. in diners. But something about Kyle's voice, the way he said my husband's name, made me freeze. What do you know about Chuck?" I asked slowly. Kyle leaned in, whispering like the booth itself had ears. "I think he's been running a scam. And I think you're not the first woman he's walked out on." I stared at him, silent. Kyle opened his phone and showed me a photo. It was Chuck. Standing in front of a different RV. With a different woman. Younger. Blonde. Smiling like she just won the lottery. That photo was time-stamped from last month. Felt like my ribs collapsed. "Who is she?" I whispered. "My mother," Kyle said. "Her name was Lorna." The past tense wasn't lost on me. "She passed 3 weeks ago," he added. "Cancer. Fast and brutal. I flew down to help her sort out some things. That's when I found her journal. And Chuck's name in it. A lot." He looked at me carefully as if gauging whether I'd crack. "She called him Ray." My stomach twisted. "That's what he went by when he met her," Kyle continued. "They were together almost 2 years. He thought he was a widower. Said his wife had passed in a boating accident in Mobile." My eyes filled with tears. Not from heartbreak. No, I was way past that, but from something sharper. Humiliation. He killed me off. He told another woman I was dead. I could barely breathe. "I don't understand," I managed. "We were married for 51 years. We have kids, grandkids, church friends, photos. How did he?" Kyle nodded slowly. "That's what I came to ask you." He opened his backpack and pulled out a worn red binder. "I found this in his things. I think it's how he kept track of it all, aliases, dates, even passwords. There's cash stashed in it too. Not a lot, but enough to make me wonder." I flipped through the pages with shaking fingers. Every name, every city, every date, looked like something out of a spy movie. He had bank accounts under different variations of his name. Chuck Jennings, Ray Jensen, Charles R. James. There were lists of RV parks with notes beside them. "Helen's still with me. Lorna wants to go to Arizona. Stall. Avoid Missouri. Stacy incident." Stacy? Who the heck was Stacy? I slammed the binder shut. This wasn't just a man having a midlife crisis at 73. Chuck was living a double life. No, multiple lives. "I'm sorry," Kyle said softly. I just nodded. I didn't have the strength to speak. For the next 10 minutes, we sat in silence while the waitress refilled our coffee and the radio played a slow country ballad about losing your dog in your truck. It would have been funny if I wasn't fighting the urge to scream. When I finally looked up, Kyle asked, "Do you have anywhere to go?" That question broke me more than the photos, more than the journal, more than the binder. Because the answer was no. I had no home. No car. No money except for the $20 bill now crumpled in my wallet. Chuck had handled all the bank stuff. I just trusted him. For 5 decades. Kyle saw the look in my eyes and said, "My wife and I have a guest room in Albuquerque. We can put you up for a few nights." I shook my head. "That's kind, but I can't be a burden. I've got kids. I'll call my daughter." Except, when I picked up my phone and scrolled through the contacts, I realized something horrible. My phone had been wiped. All my contacts, gone. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. Chuck must have done it. Maybe while I was sleeping or when I was in the store. Somehow he'd reset it. Like I was just erased. "You can use mine," Kyle offered gently. "Landline even. My wife's old-fashioned." I smiled weakly. "So am I." Later that day, after borrowing his phone and leaving a voicemail for my daughter, I checked into a cheap motel just outside town. It smelled like bleach and old curtains, but it had a clean bed and a working lock, and that was more than I had the day before. I stood in the shower that evening, letting the hot water pound down on my back, and all I could think was, what kind of man does this at 73? Chuck wasn't just done with me. He was done with being Chuck. I thought I was just a wife left in a Walmart parking lot. But now I knew the truth. I was just one name in a binder full of lies. And I wasn't about to let that be the final chapter of my story. Because someone else from Chuck's past was about to call me. And what she told me would change everything. The motel room smelled like something between mothballs and lemon cleaner, and the bedspread was stiff enough to stand up by itself. But for me, it was the first roof over my head that wasn't attached to Chuck, or Ray, or Charles R. In nearly a decade. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I kept seeing that binder. Names, notes, cities. Played through my mind like a slow, sick game show. Name that victim. At 6:12 a.m. the motel phone rang. I sat straight up, heart pounding. No one had that number. No one except Kyle. Maybe. I picked up slowly. "Hello." A woman's voice. Rough but calm. "Is this Helen Jennings?" "Yes." She exhaled hard like she'd been holding her breath for a year. "My name's Denise. I think we have something in common. I was married to Chuck too." I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. She continued, "I found your name in some legal papers when I was trying to track him down for back alimony. He listed you as an emergency contact once, years ago." The room started spinning. "You said you were married to him?" I asked, my voice thin. "Yes. 1982 to 1989. I left him after he drained my inheritance and tried to run off with my sister." I blinked. "Your sister?" "Yep. It didn't last. She emptied his bank account and disappeared to Costa Rica. It's honestly the only good part of the story." I clutched the edge of the bedside table like it could keep me grounded. How many wives has he had?" I asked. Denise didn't hesitate. "You're number 5. The words hit like bricks. I thought I was his only wife. His last wife. His forever. I gave up my garden, my books, my Sunday school group to follow him into a metal can on wheels around the country. I thought that sacrifice meant something. Apparently it just made me easier to move around." Denise kept talking, almost like she was used to telling this story. "He's a serial starter. That's what my therapist called it. He builds a life, plays the role, and just when things get too deep or too real, he cuts and runs. He loves the early parts. The chase. But the moment it starts requiring effort, he's gone." I swallowed hard. "That sounds familiar," I said softly. "Oh, honey," she said, and I could hear the sympathy in her voice. "You and I should get a drink sometime. We could fill a whole season of television." After we hung up, I just sat there, phone still pressed to my ear. Not crying. Not yelling. Just numb. Chuck had tricked me. Lied to me. Used me. But the worst part? He wasn't even original about it. Later that day I went down to the Waffle Hut attached to the gas station next door. I needed something warm. Something with butter. The waitress, a perky woman named Janie with teased-up hair and sparkling blue eyeliner, looked at me with a little too much cheer. "You just movin' through or stuck here a while?" she chirped. "Something like that," I said. "Well, at least you've still got good taste in pancakes." She winked and walked off. I glanced around at the other tables. Truckers, old couples, a group of teenage girls in softball uniforms. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere. I felt like a ghost in a world that kept moving. After breakfast, I sat in the corner booth, sipping lukewarm coffee and pulled out the binder again. I was determined to learn everything about the man I'd married. About the stranger I'd slept next to for 51 years. There was a note scribbled in red ink on one of the back pages. LA Storage, Unit 84. Don't forget box marked old stuff. I felt a chill. Old stuff? Was that where he kept trophies? Photos? Fake documents? Or something worse? I needed to find that unit. But first, I needed to call my daughter again. This time she picked up. "Mom? Oh my God, where are you? Why haven't you called? Dad told us you were visiting your cousin in Nebraska." I blinked. "What?" "He said you had a surprise reunion with Aunt Judy. And your phone broke. We've been texting but figured you were just off the grid. You know, RV life." I nearly dropped the phone. Chuck had covered his tracks. Lied to our children. Turned my disappearance into a harmless girl's trip. How do you even begin to explain that to your kids? "Honey, your dad left me. At a Walmart. In Texas." Silence. Then, what? I explained everything. The parking lot. The binder. The other women. The text message. My phone being wiped. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then she said something that nearly broke me. "I believe you." And I started to cry. Not because of Chuck. But because someone still saw me. Still trusted me. Still loved me. "I'm flying out tomorrow," she said. "You're not doing this alone. Subscribe and stay with this story. It only gets deeper." The next chapter brings Helen face to face with a public humiliation that forces her to confront just how invisible she's become. The next day, I went to a local library to scan some of Chuck's old papers. I wanted to see if there were any clues about where he was now. Maybe I could track him. Or warn the next poor woman in line. The librarian was a young man named Trevor, barely 20 with chipped nail polish and a kind voice. When I asked to scan the documents, he paused. "These look kind of shady," he said. "You sure you're okay?" "I'm trying to figure out if I ever actually knew my husband," I replied honestly. He nodded like he got it. But then, right as he handed me my USB stick, he laughed. "Oh man, I knew I recognized this guy. This is Chuck, right? The guy from TikTok." I froze. "What do you mean, TikTok?" Trevor pulled out his phone and opened a video. It was Chuck. Wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Dancing on a beach with a woman half his age. The caption read, "RV King strikes again. #SugarDaddy, #FreedomLife, #Catch him if you can." I stared at the screen. People were laughing. Commenting. Calling him, the Grandpa Gatsby. One person wrote, "Legend. He's living the dream." Another said, "That woman with him must be number 6. And there I was. Alone in a library. My whole life wrecked. While the man who caused it was a meme. I stumbled outside, holding back tears. The world didn't just ignore what he did. It celebrated it. But I wasn't going to be a footnote. Not anymore. I was going to expose Chuck. And I wasn't going to do it alone. Because Denise had just sent me a text. And she wasn't coming empty-handed. Subscribe now. Helen is done being silent. What happens next will leave you speechless. When Denise stepped out of the Greyhound bus at the Amarillo terminal, she didn't look like a woman carrying a decades-old wound. She looked like someone ready for war. A short woman, maybe in her 60s, with silver hair cropped close to her jaw and steel in her eyes. We hugged like we'd known each other for years. Maybe grief does that, binds you to strangers with matching scars. She held up her small carry-on and said, "Everything I've got on him is in here." We went back to the motel and laid everything out on the table like detectives in a crime drama. Marriage certificates, photos, legal complaints, even a faded cassette tape marked, voicemail, 88. I laughed bitterly. Chuck still used tapes? Oh, he was a dinosaur, Denise said. But a clever one. Kept everything low-tech to avoid digital trails. Until TikTok, apparently. I winced. He grinned. Oh, I saw it. Grandpa Gatsby. Makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? Yes, I said. And punch someone. Not necessarily in that order. Among her papers was a court document that stunned me into silence. It was dated 2004. My name was on it. Emergency contact listed under his medical file, Denise explained. He had a minor heart issue. They put your name down, said you were his sister. I clenched my jaw. He told you I was dead. Told me you didn't exist. Told the hospital I was his sister. She nodded. He was building walls around every lie, brick by brick. I picked up a manila folder from the table and saw a photo I hadn't seen in years. Our wedding day. Not my wedding day with Chuck. Someone else's. It was 1975 and he was clean-shaven, standing beside a woman in a white dress. She looked eerily like me. Thinner. Taller. But something in the face. I turned to Denise. Who's this? That's wife number 2. Her. We think she's living in Michigan now. I've never spoken to her. I shook my head slowly. It was one thing to find out I wasn't the only wife. It was another to realize I wasn't even the only woman he picked with that exact face. I thought I was special, I whispered. Isn't that stupid? At 73, still thinking you're the love of someone's life. Denise touched my hand. That's not stupid, Helen. That's hope. And he used that against all of us. We decided to take action. Not revenge exactly, but resolution. I posted on an RV Facebook group we'd both used over the years. The one where Chuck often bragged about his vintage wine collection and old-school charm. I posted a single photo of him and wrote, "Has anyone seen this man recently? So please message me. This is urgent and personal." Within 2 hours I had 11 messages. 3 women claimed they'd met him at different campgrounds, 2 in the past month alone. One said she knew him as Rick J. Another said he was now traveling with a woman named Kayla, who did crystal jewelry readings out of the RV. And then there was Nancy. Nancy had met him in Arizona. She had his current phone number. She even offered to send a photo of the RV's license plate. But what she sent me next? That's when my knees buckled. The RV he was driving, it was registered in my name. Which meant, if he hit someone, ran a red light, failed to pay a ticket, it all came back to me. He left me in Texas but took my identity with him. That wasn't just betrayal. That was criminal. Denise placed her hand on my shoulder. You've got to report this. I will, I said. But not until I take something back. She raised an eyebrow. What? I opened my phone and pulled up the TikTok of Chuck dancing in his floral shirt with his new mystery woman. I took a screenshot and uploaded it to our Facebook post with a new caption. If this man is currently your partner, please know he has at least 5 wives, multiple aliases, and a warrant history across 3 states. DM me for documents. It went viral within hours. The next morning we went to a small-town police station to file a report. I sat in a stiff plastic chair, explaining how my husband had left me stranded and stolen my identity. The young officer listening, barely 25, looked uncomfortable the entire time. So, you're saying he left you in a Walmart parking lot, and he's now driving your RV with a different woman? Yes. And you're married? Legally, yes. Unless he filed something I never signed. He scribbled something on his pad. Then he asked the question I hadn't prepared for. Why didn't you leave earlier? I stared at him stunned. Denise narrowed her eyes. Excuse me. It's just, if he was doing this for years, why wait until now to come forward? The shame washed over me like cold water. As if it was my fault for trusting my husband. For believing the life we had was real. For thinking 50 years meant something. I didn't wait, I said quietly. I just didn't know. He was careful, manipulative, and I was busy loving him. They took my statement, but I could tell they weren't rushing to open a file. I was just another elderly woman with a sad story. When we stepped outside, Denise shook her head. You know what we need? What? Something they can't ignore. Something public. A crowd. Cameras. A microphone. I laughed. Denise, I'm 73. I have one good hip and half a gallbladder. I'm not starting a protest. No, she said. But you are going on television. Later that day, a local news station contacted us. One of the reporters had seen the viral Facebook post and wanted to run a segment. It would air that Friday. Live. They even offered to meet us in front of the Amarillo courthouse. I agreed. Not because I needed revenge, but because I wanted the next woman to Google him before falling for the stories. Before giving up her house or her name or her entire self. But I wasn't ready for what would happen that Friday. Because someone unexpected would show up to the live interview and tell me the one thing I never imagined I'd hear. Friday morning came with a thick heat that clung to everything. The kind of air that made your clothes feel too tight and your emotions run too close to the surface. The news crew set up outside the Amarillo courthouse just before 10 a.m. A young reporter named Tasha mic'd me up, adjusted the collar of my blouse and said gently, "Just tell your truth, Miss Helen. We'll take care of the rest." Denise stood off camera, arms folded, watching everything like a general in battle. Behind her was a small crowd, mostly curious locals who'd seen the viral Facebook post. One woman brought donuts. Another held a handmade sign that read, "You're not invisible, Helen." I was grateful, but I was also terrified. It's one thing to survive betrayal. It's another to relive it on television. The interview started and I spoke slowly, clearly. My voice trembled once or twice, but I kept going. I told them about the Walmart parking lot. About the binder. About the lies that span decades and states. I gave him 51 years of my life, I said. He gave me a banana and a dead phone. There was a ripple of laughter from the crowd. Not mocking. Understanding. The kind of laugh you let out when the pain is too big to carry alone. Tasha leaned in. What do you want people to take away from this, Helen? I looked into the camera, straight into the lens, like I was speaking to every woman who'd ever been ghosted, ignored, or erased. I want them to know it's never too late to start over, I said. Even at 73. Even when you think the best years are behind you, you can still take your name back. Your life back. The segment was supposed to wrap there. But just as Tasha was thanking me, I saw her. A woman in a flowing yellow sundress walking slowly across the courthouse lawn. She had dark curly hair, sunglasses, and a nervous energy that clung to her like perfume. She looked about 40. Maybe younger. She was holding a manila envelope. She walked straight up to me and said, "Are you Helen Jennings?" I nodded cautiously. She took off her sunglasses. "My name is Kayla," she said. Chuck. Right now. He's parked 3 miles from here in an RV he says is his. You could have heard a pin drop. Denise stepped forward immediately, ready to shield me like a bodyguard, but I put my hand on her arm. "Let her speak," I said. Kayla looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something I recognized. Realization. The kind that burns. I saw the Facebook post 2 nights ago. Thought it was a joke. Or some crazy woman. Then I saw your wedding photos. And the binder pages. Then I recognized the handwriting. She held up the envelope. Inside were dozens of notes. Grocery lists. Letters. Bits of poetry. All in Chuck's handwriting. All signed with different names. "I confronted him last night," Kayla said. "He told me it was all lies. That his ex-wife was bitter. That you were a drama queen who wanted attention." I flinched. "I wanted to believe him," she added. "But this morning he tried to run. Said we needed to move the RV to New Mexico immediately. That's when I knew. He's done this before." Her hands shook as she held out a photograph. It was Chuck. Asleep in the RV. Next to a pile of printed cash receipts and burner phones. She looked up at me and said, "I stole the keys while he was showering. He's still in there. If you want to see him." I didn't move. The camera crew had turned off their equipment. The crowd was dead silent. And suddenly I felt all of it, the years, the weight, the grief, the rage, crashing over me like a wave. I thought I'd be ready for this moment. But when it finally came, I felt nothing but tired. I don't need to see him, I said. Not anymore. Kayla nodded. Then I'll report him. He's got warrants, right? Denise stepped forward, holding her phone. 3 actually. 2 in Tennessee. 1 in Arizona. I've got the documents. Kayla nodded again. Then she did something I didn't expect. He hugged me. And whispered, "Thank you for saving me from him." That hug meant more than anything Chuck had ever given me. Not flowers. Not trips. Not anniversary dinners. That hug was real. The police found Chuck exactly where she said he'd be, sleeping shirtless in the back of the RV with a half-eaten box of crackers and a duffel bag full of IDs in the sink. When they pulled him out, he reportedly said, "This is all just a misunderstanding." Typical. He was arrested on the spot for fraud, identity theft, and outstanding warrants. The news caught it all. The man who once danced on TikTok and called himself the RV King was now trending again. This time under the hashtag Justice for Helen. If this story hit you in the heart, make sure to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, subscribe for more true stories that matter. In the weeks that followed, I started to breathe again. My daughter flew in and helped me get a lawyer. Denise stayed another week and helped me move into a short-term rental in a senior community. Nothing fancy, but there was a garden. With real tomatoes. And actual neighbors who said hello. And then, something funny happened. I started laughing again. At first it was small things. Like the way the cat next door always tried to follow me into my room. Or the way Denise cursed every time she forgot where she parked. Or the fact that my TikTok interview had gone viral with over 3 million views. Apparently, people love a good comeback story. Especially when it stars a stubborn, slipper-wearing 73-year-old woman who refuses to go quietly. I planted basil last week. Signed up for a watercolor class. And when I wake up, I make my own coffee. Hot. Just the way I like it. Chuck called from jail once. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. And that is how my story ends. Not with a husband. Not with an RV. But with me. Whole. Unfinished. And finally alive. If Helen's story touched your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment. Share it with someone who needs to believe it's never late to begin again. And most of all, subscribe. More powerful stories are coming your way.